And it's down the ice for a 2-on-1 breakaway. Wilson fakes the pass. He shoots. He scores! Oh, wow. Where there's a Wilson, there's a way, son. Welcome to the Cuz Wilson Show. I'm your host and Wilsonologist, Kenny Wilson, and we talk about people, places, and things named Wilson. Since the 2026 Stanley Cup Final for the National Hockey League is going on right now at the time of this podcast, the first team to win 4 out of the 7 possible games will be crowned the champions and hoist the Stanley Cup Award. Therefore, this episode is dedicated to the game of ice hockey, and our next episode will be all about basketball because the NBA Finals is also being played. After that, our episode will be about footy because the FIFA World Cup is about to start. In our people category for this episode, we discover 3 Hall of Fame hockey legends, all with the name Wilson. In our places category, we find 2 ice hockey arenas named Wilson. In our things category, we describe another hockey champion cup, and this one's called the Wilson Cup. And you'll really be surprised where this competition is held. And of course, we have Wilsons in the news, Wilsons in other sports, and some more goodies. And now, cuz, let's get on with the show.
And now, it's time for the people category.
In today's episode, we're going to add 2 segments on hockey players that we already focused on in previous Cuz Wilson episodes. Women's hockey legend Stacey Wilson from Canada was spotlighted in the episode 7 titled Wilson Games Part 2, and you can go to minute mark 7 minutes and 27 seconds to hear that segment about Stacey. A little later in that same episode, we focused on another female hockey player named Luisa Wilson from Mexico, and she helped her mixed country team win an Olympic gold medal. And we also had the story of NHL right winger Tom Wilson, who played in this year's Olympics team for Team Canada. But his NHL team didn't make it to this year's Stanley Cup, so he's not playing this. His story is in episode 6 titled The 2026 Wilson Games, and it's at minute mark 9 minutes and 25 seconds. In 2018, he scored 2 goals and added an assist during the finals to help the Capitals capture their very first Stanley Cup in franchise history. And now, I get to introduce you to even more Wilsons in ice hockey. In the 2017 Stanley Cup Final, there was a Wilson versus Wilson matchup in that series. Colin Wilson played in all 14 games in the Nashville Predators' historic run to the final, and Scott Wilson played for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Scott made 1 score in the 6 games, and they became the Stanley Cup champions. Before we get pinned up against the boards with those players, we meet the greatest individual player named Wilson in NHL history. He's the legendary Chicago Blackhawks defenseman and Hall of Famer, Doug Wilson. But sadly, Doug actually never reached it to the Stanley Cup Final during his 16-year playing career. But he did play in 95 career playoff games, and he won the Norris Trophy in 1982, and that one's for the top defenseman of the year. Now, just so you know, I utilize a couple of AI-created hosts named Larry and Mary, and I call them that because they're from Google's Notebook LM. You know, Larry and Mary. They make explainer videos to help me with the details and give your ears a break from my Texas accent. So I'm calling for a line change here and have Larry create a little review on Doug Wilson's hockey career.
Hey guys, Larry here. Welcome to this explainer celebrating the absolutely legendary hockey career of Doug Wilson. So let me ask you, which defenseman scored a staggering 39 goals in just one single season?
You guessed it, Doug Wilson. That insane stat perfectly shows why he's a 2020 Hall of Fame inductee. But get this,
He actually endured a grueling 24-year wait to finally receive this ultimate honor.
Let's trace this incredible, sweeping journey, right from his draft day all the way to legendary enshrinement.
His absolute peak hit during the 81-82 season. Wilson netted a jaw-dropping 39 goals that year. He racked up 85 total points, too, setting Blackhawks franchise records that incredibly still stand today. That brilliant performance rightfully earned him the Norris Trophy as the league's absolute top defenseman that year. His statistical dominance in Chicago was literally unparalleled. He's still their highest-scoring defenseman in franchise history.
From 1980 to 1991, Wilson led all Chicago defensemen in scoring for 10 consecutive seasons. That's unmatched consistency.
To put that greatness into perspective, his 827 points were eighth most by any defenseman upon his retirement.
Moving out west later on, he brought instant credibility as the first-ever captain of the San Jose Sharks. His impact went way beyond stats, establishing a vital culture and launching a scholarship foundation in San Jose. Over 16 whole NHL seasons, he just maintained an elite, incredibly consistent volume of offensive production.
And his immense hockey wisdom continues today, serving as senior advisor of hockey operations for the Pittsburgh Penguins.
So, with a Norris Trophy and a Hall of Fame ring, where does Wilson rank among all-time greats?
Thank you, Larry. And now our first period is over, and we begin our second period to focus on another Hall of Fame Wilson in the game of professional ice hockey. When it comes to the hockey world, few people have a resume as diverse and fascinating as Ron Wilson. I'm going to have Larry tell you about this amazing player because after his fantastic playing career, he started coaching. Larry, tell us about Ron's top-shelf path from player to coach.
Welcome to This Explainer. I'm Larry. Today, we're unpacking the unbelievable dual legacy of hockey's Ron Wilson. So, does a true legend shatter on-ice records or rack up over 600 NHL coaching wins?
Well, Ron Wilson didn't just pick one path, he literally dominated the game from both sides.
Let's rewind. Way before coaching, Wilson was a totally revolutionary offensive defenseman at Providence College. Get this, in his 1974 sophomore season, he exploded for a staggering 87 points. He finished with 250 career points, setting insane NCAA defensive records that still hold up today. Drafted by the Leafs, he soon took his high-tempo style over to the larger Swiss ice. There, he tallied a mind-blowing 430 points in just 249 games before returning to the NHL. After hanging up his skates in 1988, Wilson brought that massive hockey IQ straight behind the bench. He blazed a trail right away, starting as the very first head coach of the Mighty Ducks. And he wasn't just old school. He was actually the NHL's ultimate early adopting tech geek. His aggressive forechecking and crazy tech usage translated into a massive 648 career NHL wins. He even took the Washington Capitals to their first ever Stanley Cup Final back in 1998. But honestly, his international resume with Team USA is where he hit true legendary status. We're talking 1996 World Cup gold and pushing Canada to overtime for Olympic silver in 2010. Hockey great Chris Chelios said, Wilson always made the team believe they were the absolute best. Then, in 2016, a major stroke sidelined the 61-year-old, heavily testing his legendary resilience. But true to form, he battled back hard in rehab, totally inspiring the entire hockey community. USA Hockey rightfully cemented his legacy, officially inducting him into their Hall of Fame in 2017. So, will this ultimate innovator be remembered more as an unstoppable player or a genius coaching pioneer?
Thanks again, Larry. And hearing what Ron Wilson accomplished, that just blows me away. And get this, we have a Hall of Fame hat trick of Wilson's because there's one more hockey Hall of Fame inductee named Gordon Allen Wilson, and he was from the Elite Amateur Hockey League in Northern Ontario, Canada. But even though Gordon Wilson is a Hall of Famer, he really never played on any NHL team because he turned down team offers in the 1920s and 30s because he wanted to stay home and work at the job he liked. He also wanted to continue in the amateur league. One possible factor in his decision was probably because NHL contracts back then didn't entice him to leave home. They only offered about $2,000 a year, and today that's equivalent to about $30,000 a year. And that's not a lot of money to leave home and play hockey.
Let's dive into the explainer on Gordon "Fat" Wilson. He's one of the Hockey Hall of Fame's unlikeliest legends. Get this. Back in 1914, this future Hall of Famer couldn't even skate at a church league tryout. But his progression was wild. He went from a stumbling substitute to an elite champion in just a decade. He rapidly climbed the amateur ranks, building his entire legacy right at home in Port Arthur, Ontario. He soon became known as an absolutely unstoppable, rink-rushing offensive defenseman. He literally dominated the ice. His Hall of Fame caliber play was undeniable. He even won the local scoring title his last 3 seasons. But you know what cemented his hockey immortality? Securing 3 massive national senior championships. He literally built a Canadian dynasty, leading the Port Arthur Bearcats to multiple Allen Cup victories. Look at all this hardware. They swept up these prestigious trophies in 1925 after crushing Toronto. So the pro leagues definitely noticed. This created the ultimate choice: cash in or stay loyal to your roots. Shockingly, he turned down 3 major pro contracts. Why? He simply refused to leave his beloved hometown. After retiring in 1932, his Hall of Fame resume only grew when he stepped up to manage the Bearcats. As a coach, he was just as brilliant, driving his senior clubs deep into the playoffs for years. His off-ice legacy is staggering too. He actively built grassroots sports for both girls and boys throughout the community. The ultimate validation for his unique amateur path, being officially inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1962.
2 decades later, his hometown permanently immortalized him, adding him to their very first Hall of Fame class.
It leaves us with a fascinating thought. Could you walk away from pro fame to be a hometown hero?
Before we go on to our second topic, I wanted to remind you that our show notes for our episodes are found on our website at cuzwilson.com. That's cuzwilson.com. While you're there, look around some. On the menu, you can hover over that black button on the top right labeled More. That'll take you to some other interesting pages all about Wilsons. You can also check out our merch with Wilson on them, and that's what we use to support nonprofits named Wilson. Also, scroll down towards the bottom and you'll see some icons about different hobbies or professions. If they relate to you, click on them. You can see what other Wilsons have done fantastic stuff. Now, if something in this episode needs correction, because I found it on the internet, and as we know, the internet can be off a little bit. So if you find something, send me a voicemail with the clarification or correction or your opinion on something. You can also send me topic suggestions, criticisms, encouragements, or death threats. And we make it easy to send us a voicemail. Just click on the little floating microphone icon at the bottom right of the page, and that's opposite to the icon on the left side which says, Buy Me a Coffee. And that's where you can support the show by leaving us a tip for entertaining you today.
And now, it's time for the Places category.
For our Places category, we explored 2 options for a hockey player named Wilson to play in an ice hockey arena named Wilson. This time I'm going to have Mary let us know about these 2 places, because if you're into hockey and your name is Wilson, you definitely want to go to one of these places.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at how 2 Midwestern towns built radically different recreational empires. So here's the million-dollar question. What actually unites a dense urban park with a rural athletic hub? The answer? They both run massive municipal ice arenas that share the exact same name, Wilson. It's a classic tale of the tape. We've got urban Milwaukee squaring off against rural Jamestown. And get this, despite totally different setups, both facilities pack exactly 2,000 spectator seats. But man, talk about historical whiplash when you look at their namesakes, 2 entirely different guys. Milwaukee's park honors President Woodrow Wilson's 1918 14 points, which advocated for Polish independence. Meanwhile, Jamestown named theirs after Dr. John L. Wilson, a local research chemist and college president. Two totally different legacies that perfectly match their unique local demographics and municipal budgets. So, how do they fill those seats? Well, Milwaukee actually incubated professional hockey. The Milwaukee Admirals literally started here in 1970 before eventually outgrowing the venue. Jamestown went with a collegiate community model, permanently housing the University of Jamestown Jimmies and high schools. But the real game changer? Subfloor engineering. It completely dictates their whole municipal strategy and budget. Milwaukee uses a permanent refrigerated grid, giving the city profitable year-round ice availability. Jamestown opted for a concrete subfloor instead, giving their multi-rink complex some crazy seasonal flexibility. After winter hockey, the ice melts, instantly turning that dry concrete into a massive roller skating hub. While Milwaukee's park offers an ecological buffer, Jamestown maximizes literally every inch for intense athletic training. Let's talk money. Milwaukee offers cheaper individual adult rates, while Jamestown pushes a $15 family deal. Milwaukee relies on sheer urban volume and standard venue rentals to keep those Zambonis running. Jamestown thrives on creative partnerships, like Blue Cross Blue Shield stepping up to sponsor free skate rentals. Ultimately, both of these arenas are absolutely smashing barriers to public access in their own unique ways. Milwaukee removes physical barriers by providing free adaptive ice skating sleds so absolutely everyone can hit the ice. Jamestown cements its culture with a tight-knit community foyer and a victory bell tower they ring after wins. Concrete or refrigeration? How will your hometown adopt its resources to build the next generation of athletes?
Thank you, Mary. I plan on taking a visit to beautiful Canada someday, and now I have a target location to aim for.
Are you ready for another Uncle Willie joke?
Do you know why the retired hockey player became a magician? Because he wanted to show you his hat trick.
After video review, we have a 2-minute minor for unsportsmanlike corniness. The joke was so bad, it constitutes an illegal use of the mouth, and the penalty will be served in the penalty box.
And now, it's time for the Things category.
We let Stanley know that he's not the only cup in town, and he's not the only cup that hockey players drink from. There's such a thing as the Wilson Cup. It's a historic ice hockey trophy awarded. And get this, it's from Australia. Yes, I said Australia. Now, we learned in our Winter Olympics episodes that Australia has 10 snow ski resorts, and they also play hockey too. In 1960, they even sent a team to the Winter Olympics in Squaw Valley, California. They were called the Mighty Roos, and they even scored a goal against the Czechs team. I'm not going to tell you how many goals the team from Czechoslovakia scored, or I'm not going to tell you how many goals the gold medal winning USA team scored against them. But despite the lopsided scores, the team became folk heroes of the 1960 games for their incredible sportsmanship, relentless work ethic, and the fact that they never stopped smiling or trying to score. I believe it. These guys are crazy. They're tough, and they're fun, and they're hilarious, and everybody loves a good Aussie. So, Mary, throw a little puck on the Barbie and tell us about the Wilson Trophy down under.
Let's dive right into this explainer and unpack Australia's absolute fiercest, frostiest ice hockey rivalry. But hold on a second. Which Wilson Cup are we actually talking about here? Crazy enough, there are Wilson Cups for axe throwing, basketball, and yep, even prosthetic urology. But today, we're locking in exclusively on Australian ice hockey's most prized regional trophy. It totally honors John and Carol Wilson, the absolute pioneers of grassroots ice sports in Sydney. Through their massive private support, they literally built junior leagues and bankrolled an entire expansion team. Early on, the tournament survived a pretty chaotic era of hiatuses before finally finding its footing. Then, in 2017, the league completely transformed it from a preseason warm-up into a regular season war. This genius pivot slashed massive travel costs and basically guaranteed full-strength rosters for every game. It became this incredibly exclusive, high-stakes showdown between two fiercely competitive local Sydney rivals. But you know what? This modern Sydney Derby rivalry quickly became completely one-sided on the ice. The Bears just ruthlessly dominated, sweeping the Ice Dogs 4 consecutive times starting in 2019. But hold on, because everything suddenly flipped at the start of the 2026 season. On April 17th, the Ice Dogs completely stunned the Bears with a 4-2 opening victory. This monumental win literally shattered the Bears' massive, multi-year winning streak right out of the gate. So, with the streak dead, are we witnessing a total fluke or a brand new dynasty?
Thanks, Mary. That was a great story. And I lived in Australia for about a year, and I absolutely love the people down there and their country. But guess what? There's even other industries that have an award called the Wilson Cup. They're all over the world, and I'm going to include a couple in this episode, but also in the next 2 episodes. I'll get us started with the Wilson Cup in offshore sailing in the USA. To win the Wilson Cup, crews must test their navigation and endurance across a multi-month series of distinct, challenging offshore courses. Larry, set sail and tell us about the Wilson Cup in offshore sailing.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the incredible, century-long legacy of competitive sailing.
So, what connects a 1910 motorboat, a U.S. president, and a 441-meal menu? Let's unravel this mystery.
Okay, let's dive into this by jumping way back to 1910 for the grueling 285-mile Wilson Cup. The custom-built Blue Peter V totally outpaced the low-powered, handicapped Elmo II, right outside Long Island.
Let's jump to 1937. Meet S.Y. Manitou, a legendary Sparkman and Stevens yacht built for the Great Lakes.
These stats are staggering. At 62 feet and 60,000 pounds, she absolutely crushed the 1938 Mackinac race. Her legacy even caught President JFK's eye, who later used Manitou as his floating White House.
Moving to 1948, the Wilson name pops up again, but this time inside an Irish hotel room. Over celebratory drinks, these 3 guys drafted the actual foundational rules for modern dinghy team racing. Let's move along and see how this builds, from 1948 straight through to the 1999 Golden Anniversary.
By 1976, that Wilson name was etched onto a Blue Water Ocean Racing trophy too.
Shifting to the modern era, we see families tackling the absolutely brutal double-handed transatlantic race together. That is 2,800 nautical miles. Imagine fathers and kids sharing that massive ocean-crossing challenge. Talk about grit. Bill and Will Hubbard survived 10 whole days with 0 electricity during their race. When asked why they'd endure this brutal race a 3rd time, Will humorously just replied, "Why not?" Then there's Jacqueline IV, sailed by Bob Foreman and his daughter Kara, a Wilson Cup champion herself.
Remarkably, Kara managed to prep an incredible 441 meals at sea on a tight 6-day rotation.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why Bob proudly calls Kara his secret weapon out on the water. Today, that same enduring spirit lives on as the community actively funds the next century of sailors.
Now, what's really interesting here is how U.S. Sailing Foundation grants directly empower these growing youth programs.
Looking at the actual 2014 Foundation minutes, we can verify the approval of official community sailing travel grants. A specific $4,000 allocation was approved, ensuring these vital youth programs continue to thrive and grow.
Bringing it all together, a modern $2,000 grant directly supports today's Wilson Cup team, closing the loop. So, from a 1910 motorboat to today's youth fleets, what legacy will you build on the water?
Thanks, Larry. That was a great story, and there's even another Wilson Cup in sailing that dates back to 1913 for an international regatta that was held in Marblehead, Massachusetts for the Sonder-class yachts. It's a historic style of lightweight racing boats. Named the Wilson Cup, it represented a friendly competitive clash between the United States and German teams. Ultimately, the American yacht LN3 won that competition. Just think, if we kept our competitions friendly like that, like the Wilson Cup, maybe we wouldn't have lost 20 million people in World War I.
But now it's time for Wilson's in the News.
We track Wilson's in the News daily on our dedicated media page, but here's a brief look of some of our favorite recent headlines. We've been waiting for Russell Wilson to make his mind up if he is going to play this year in NFL or if he's going to go ahead and retire. And it looks like he made the decision to retire from football and join CBS Sports for its Sunday pregame show as a sports analyst. The cruise line Viking has officially welcomed its newest ocean ship to the fleet, and Rebecca Webb Wilson is the ship's godmother. I didn't know ships had godmothers, but the ship is beautiful. She's probably going to be proud of that one. Wilson Phillips joins the Great New York State Fair's Women's Day lineup on Wednesday, September 2nd. And the last one for today is the NFL team Atlanta Falcons announced the new Ollie Wilson Coaching Fellowship. Now, there's more news at CuzWilson.com by hovering over the More button and then clicking on News. Our next episode is dedicated to the game of basketball, and it's going to blow you away, so be sure to click on the follow button to be notified when that episode is published. Thank you for listening, and until next time, see ya, cuz! The Cuz Wilson Show is a product of Name and Culture Media.